Let me paint you a pretty accurate picture of the future. In the future, white man can jump. In the future, Taiwan is recognized as a country, or is not recognized as a country. The vote is still out on that. In the future, you will know how to progress through calisthenics exercise like an absolute master. Not because you have to, but because you want to. And by the end of this video, you will not need any more calisthenics progression guides for a while. All of these exercises get my full seal of approval. So if you're ready, let's check out how you can progress through the most important calisthenics exercises step by step. Let the games begin. Now this will be a road to mastering pull-ups, and I'm not just talking about chin-ups, which is a baby exercise. No, I am talking about complete pull-up mastery in any direction and in any sort of combination. Which means that your very first exercise to start out with is the wall pull, the lowest effort, lowest impact pulling exercise you can do in calisthenics, which leads us to the inverted barbell row. And we will differentiate between the one where we start extending our hips and the one where we start in an already extended position, keeping our glutes and our spinal erectors tight. Once you're strong enough to get in a couple of reps with this sort of height, all you need to do to progress is lower that bar, requiring more strength, tension and control, and then moving us to the elevated inverted row, taking your pulling strength to a whole new level, meaning that you are now ready to simulate an actual pull-up, elevating that bar until your arms are completely extended with your butt on the floor. And this time we will start extending at the hip at the very top and bending when lowering down, which is going to minimize the amount of help we get from our legs. With the next variation being a pull behind our head, so we can work a little bit on our scapular control, specifically our scapular depression as well as our scapular elevation, adding a little bit more mobility to these parts, with two more very important movement patterns on the actual bar, being the classic symmetrical scapular pull-up and the asymmetrical or unilateral scapular pull-up, deepening our control and understanding of scapular movement even more, while now combining more abduction and adduction with elevation and depression. So we can finally move on to an underhand grip chin-up, or as I have aptly dubbed it, the baby pull. With this variation being more of a biceps and arm dominant pull than a latissimus and back dominant movement pattern. Make sure that you can pump out 4 to 5 real, perfectly executed, good form repetitions before you move on to the overhand latissimus dominant actual pull-up, which is level number 1 of pull-up mastery. All of the stuff we've done before has been preliminary work to get you to this level. Moving us to the archer, an asymmetrical overhand lateral movement, with the addition of having a little bit more deltoid inclusion in this movement due to having to hold the top, which moves us to the typewriter pull-up, the lateral movement being at the very top of the motion before we reverse the same movement again, now adding even more deltoid and chest inclusion due to the pulling motion at the top. And then of course we put all of that together into one single movement, which is a complete circular pull-up where we go up diagonally, switch sides at the top and reverse. With this one requiring the most control and the most coordination, plus the massive amount of strength you can build with it. And for those of you who want to work on the more advanced variations before they can do 5 repetitions of the one before that, you can add a band de resistance, so you can start working on your form before you have the necessary strength to do these exercises without any assistance. With this, concluding our pulling exercises and our progression, so you have a little bit to work on for the next couple of months to even years. Moving us to a rapid fire push progression. And by now you should know that we are prioritizing perfect form, which is why we're gonna start with the assisted scapular push-up. Just going through adduction and abduction in a controlled fashion with your arms extended, and continuing with the classic scapular push-up for even more scapular control and strength. Two of the most important things you will ever need when it comes to upper body calisthenics capabilities. Stay with me, we're just getting started. Moving on to the classic assisted push-up, and here comes the very important part and why we have been working on all of that scapular control, because a push-up doesn't end here, it ends here with complete scapular abduction and a little bit of thoracic spinal flexion. So we actually have the complete range of motion. And if you have been doing push-ups, just these couple of inches left in the movement make it so much harder and increase the engagement of your chest musculature almost by double, which is a very scientific and statistical number I did not invent myself. Then you're allowed to raise your knees and go for classic push-ups, and once again, don't forget that abduction and spinal flexion all the way down, touchy, and all the way up, extend and abduct. And as they say, diamonds are a girl's best friend because they actually do increase your titty size by strengthening your chest, but even more so, diamond push-ups have a lot of arm dominance, helping you build a nice triceps, both when it comes to strength as well as size. And before we can move to the explosive type 2 muscle fiber movements, we still have the lateral movement of the archer push-up as well as the typewriter, which we already did as pulling variations, and a little bit more demanding, the circular push-up movement, just like we did with the pull-ups, so you can cover pretty much every single upper body fiber all the way down through your core, and even including some hip flexor and some quad strength due to the massive tension we need to hold in this movement. And from the explosive family tree, we have the classic jumping push-up, the staggered jumping push-up, and only, and I mean only, when you feel really safe in those two, should you attempt the clapping jumping push-up for an even longer range of motion and even more strength dominance. With this concluding our pushing progression. This moving us to what people enjoy most about calisthenics: exercising their legs. Yeah, I know, people just love that, they never skip it. That is why we put that progression almost at the very end, starting out with this. What is this, you might ask? This is how you will be able to get into a complete ass to grass deep squat if you do not have the necessary mobility, be it in your ankles, your knees, your hips, or even worse, lacking the core strength to keep your body from falling back when you are at the lowest point of this movement pattern. Elevating your heels will make it much easier for you to go through a full range of motion, and over time get rid of these and work with your feet flat on the ground. With our second variation requiring a lot more strength, even though the change doesn't look like much, switch from this to this, extend our arms, and now we are gonna increase the massive inclusion of your core as well as your quads, but most importantly, your goddamn hip flexors, because most people's hip flexors are weak as f, and you are going to suffer for it. Moving us to a wide stance for the Cossack squat, with the first level being able to get your hip joint all the way down to knee height, the second level being able to sit down all the way with external rotation in our hip to add a little bit of stretch in our posterior chain, the next level being going all the way down, getting your knee to the floor and adding some posterior chain strength, specifically your biceps and your glutes, as well as your spinal erectors. And the next bonus level, for those of you who want to add a little bit more mobility and challenge, we go into an asymmetrical pseudo back bridge, adding the lower body strength and flexibility with the upper body strength, flexibility, and control. Moving us to the pistol squat, which is easier to work on if you have an elevation. You can start out at the top, lower down, requiring less strength for your hip flexors and a lot less flexibility in your posterior chain. Then move to a standing starting position and go through the exact same pattern, now requiring all of the stuff we got rid of with the elevation. And then moving to the actual true form of doing pistol squats, with the starting position being a seated one with your upper body and your legs fully extended, requiring an insane amount of core and hip flexor inclusion to raise up from the ground, all the way up, all the way down, sit down, extend, starting position before you move on to the next repetition. As a sweet, sweet bonus, we will add the elevated dragon squat, requiring the least amount of mobility you can have when doing a dragon squat, but with almost all the same benefits when it comes to quad strength and leg strength in general. Concluding our leg progression. And that's it. No reps, no sets. Work on your own discretion. You're a grown-ass adult. At least statistically you are. You know how much to do when you stop and how to listen to your own body. And if you don't, it'll be a blast to learn how. With all of that out of the way, the only thing that could make these exercises a lot more effective and help you progress a lot faster is liking this video and subscribing to this channel and joining us, because I don't want to die alone, I want to have friends. And because this community has been growing in a super fast fashion, which is still blowing my goddamn mind, and my monkey brain is on a dopamine high seeing all of these numbers go up, so raise them with me, come on! And since we have new uploads pretty much daily, you will never be bored and you will always find something new to work on or something you forgot to work on, which I will remind you of. Leave a comment, talk to me, tell me which exercises you like, tell me which exercises you hate, tell me which exercise you want to see me demonstrate, and be the king or queen I know you are by joining us on this journey. So until tomorrow, Captain Cairo, peace out.